What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Brian, we have a lot to catch up on Andor Season 2. I thought we had spoken about it, but we haven't because I was on my vacay. And episode 4, 5, and 6. And then 7, 8, 9. So much to cover. So much to discuss as far as how great this show is, to hear the praise that it's getting, and well deserved. This show is excellent, Brian. This is up there with the ones and perhaps even above because of how far you go into this world and how it looks. That is just a separate thing done at the highest level since the first trilogy, the third film of the prequel, Rogue One. This is classic. There's no other way to describe the sort of visual representation and emotional suspense and the length of what people have to do that they will go to when they've had enough. This is just compelling TV. This is hopefully other people who are developing stories could take a piece of this into their content now, or their creations in terms of storytelling and how they want to deliver it in terms of lifespans and whatever. Talk about you can't wait for one episode. Your thoughts?
One thing about this show that snuck up on me, and it really didn't dawn on me until the end of episode 9, is they have broken one of the time-honored molds of TV and movies in something that is really grand and really epic. I'm going to see if you pick up on it. How many new major characters are in season 2 versus season 1? 0. Think about how this story is being told week to week and who we're spending time with. Name one person that we're spending real time with this year who we didn't spend time with in season 1. Every TV show and movie known to man, when they come back for the sequel, does what? Here's our new cast members. We got to expand. We got to introduce new people. Now, we've lost some people, right? We've lost Marva. I'll caveat this at the end. There's one, but we haven't gotten to him yet. We've lost a few characters. We lose some in these episodes. We lost some last season. But we really have not strayed from the core characters that we were brought to in the beginning of season 1. That is an amazing accomplishment. It's also an amazing subversion, especially when you consider how much bigger this season is compared to last season. They have retained all of the intimacy and all of the stakes and all of the investment we have made in each of these individuals on both sides of the conflict, without actually giving us really anyone new of note, with the lone exception of somebody who we already know, which is K2SO, the droid. We finally get introduced to K2SO, right? So that's a character technically that we know from Rogue One very well. And we finally are getting him introduced into this show at the end of episode 9. But think about it. It's Cassian, it's Bix, it's Luthen, it's Mon Mothma, it's Clea, it's Val, it's Cinta, it's
Saul.
Cyril Karn, it's Deidre Miro, it's Major Part. It's the same
people.
They've added so much to the story, but everything is kept to the lens of this handful of people that they want us to care about. I think is a big part of why this show doesn't ever misstep,
Yeah,
because there's never like someone who comes in who you're like, wait, where they come from? That's
yeah, yeah,
disrupting my
yeah,
rhythm.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
messing up our teamwork. They don't we don't ever have that.
Having said that, what did you think of Jimmy Smith's not playing or Organa?
So so Tony Gilroy said this was due to scheduling only. So this was
Okay.
Smits was busy shooting. He couldn't come in to do it. So they get Benjamin Bratt to play Bail Organa. Newsflash: Bratt's better at it. Even in the few scenes he has, the emotion that he delivers Bale's lines with, to me, is better than what Smits was doing. In fairness, Smits was handed a really wooden part by George Lucas in the prequels, and he has almost nothing to do, and his lines are terrible. But and so Bratt is being handed Dan Gilroy writing for him, which is obviously a pretty big help. But he's really good, and again, this is a familiar character who is in 4 scenes. Like, this is not, hey, he's going to be with us for 9 episodes. That's what I mean. Like, we're getting the new characters. We get them in little spots as we go along, but the show very deliberately makes sure that we don't. Like, for example, the young guy in the raid that goes badly, that winds up in, spoiler alert, Cinta being killed. He's a new character. He is there for a very important emotional moment and dialogue on the part of Val. But then he's gone. Like, he's not instrumental to the overall story. He's a vehicle for that very specific scene. And that's what this show consistently is doing. And Bale's the same way. Like, we know him, so we don't really need any backstory with him. But he's really there to facilitate Mon Mothma's coming out party
Yeah,
as
yeah,
future president of the rebellion. That's why he's there.
yeah. It's crazy that how they raise the stakes and the moments and her practicing her speech. And I mean, I know we haven't gotten there yet, but what did you think of Saul Guerrera's speech?
Oh man, as always, that's why I call it. This is Shakespeare's Star Wars. These characters are going head to head for best monologue delivery. So the Saw thing is interesting because I want to rewind to when I watched 4, 5, and 6 in the moment. I could feel the show slowing down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but then when you watch 7, 8, and 9, which pays off a lot of the investment in 4, 5, and 6, I think in my mind it elevates 4, 5, and 6. It makes you look
Yeah,
at those episodes a little differently. So the Saw piece of this to me has always been the manner in which rebellion is conducted. Right? Everyone at this point doesn't see it the same way. When we meet Princess Leia, that rebellion is kind of a machine. They have a way of doing things to where Luke, Han, Chewie, and them can show up in the middle of the biggest fight of their lives, and they can just plug and play those guys into the fight, and it's all good. At this stage, the methods are all different, and we see that throughout the show. And so Saw basically converting Willman, it's what it is. It's like a religious conversion of how he should perceive his role in this fight. And Saw is treating that differently than the way Luthen treats it, as we know actually from season 1 when they kind of debated. So I've always find myself in this wishing for a little more Forrest Whitaker, like if they had room for it. But I understand why they keep it to a minimum, because he's really a counterpoint in some ways to what Luthen is pitching, and ultimately, like, I think what Cassian and Mon Mothma are sort of pitching. But I like it. I mean, I like, his detection of the traitor, the way he uses Wilmot, and then kind of basically is like, once he realizes everything you need to know, great. Now I've known this guy was a traitor the entire time, and just when he was about to be a factor, I kill him. They both understand that they will die in the service of this long before they get to see the payoff. And
yeah,
that's a recurring storyline for these early revolutionaries, is that we know, having seen the movies that come later, we know that none of them lives to see the Death Star be destroyed, let alone the second Death Star be destroyed.
yeah,
So they have to find purpose in this idea of what is the victory that they're playing for if they never get to see victory. Like even Cassian, right? Like Cassian never sees victory. His job is to steal the plans. He doesn't know what that leads to. He never sees what the payoff of his own work ultimately is. So I think that's a lot of the commonality these characters find, is they know they're sacrificing themselves from day one. And Saul's speech is a testament to that. I love, though, in retrospect, the introduction to the Gorman rebels. Right, it felt very World War II ish. Right, it felt
Yeah,
very World War II, like French. Even to the accents, felt very French Resistance. That's one of my favorite sequences when he's talking to Luthen, and basically
yeah,
he's like, "These guys ain't ready.
yeah, 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 yeah,
These
yeah,
guys are not ready. This is going to go badly for you." And
yeah.
Luthen's response is, he says, "What?" He's like, "What'll happen if?" He's like, "What'll happen if it goes up in flames?" And his response is, "It will burn
Burn bright.
brightly." And it's just like, it's perfect. It's the perfect contrast of how they see the rebellion at this point. And Luthen's
Yeah,
like, "I don't care how many people have to die to get this cause rolling across the
yeah.
galaxy." And Cassian's like, "No, man, you're sending these people to a certain doom if you follow through with this operation." And then, of course, he's proven right, and the show proves him right by killing off someone we already are familiar with in Cinta. It then sets the stage for the Gorman massacre, right? So that sequence of events, when we see it, we're like, oh, what Luthen was talking about, it's the operation gets botched and Cinta dies. No, it leads to the massacre of these people, like a genocide, as Mon Mothma calls it. That's what the mistaken operation leads to by episode 8. And that's what makes this show brilliant, because it just winds that up and then says, here are the consequences of each of these decisions that are made.
I mean, you felt the gravity of their cause, which makes it so impactful. I guess, given the sort of times that we're in, uh, the show giving us a perspective from regular people on the other side that they don't know that they're on the other side.
Yes. Yes.
And look, and making, the regular people too. They don't know, they're just taking orders.
Well, I think this show has reached this point of, we always make the comparison to sports. Like, this is a show that, like, in season one, a rookie of the year performance, obviously, but like in season two, you get the sense of this is like a veteran superstar. Like, right,
Yeah.
this is Michael Jordan in 1992 or 93, where the show knows everything that it's capable of and almost is toying with the audience in terms of how we can get you to buy into the simplest things. Like that sequence in the, I don't know what to call it, the dinner with Krennic and Mon Mothma in the museum, the kind of museum where they're trying to remove the listening device. Think about how little physically is going on. It's Krennic talking dictatorship to Mon Mothma talking democracy. And it's Clea just with her hand under the one table with Lonnie, like trying to pull out this device that won't shake free. And like there's so much tension because they're moving around the room and her hand is literally bleeding as she's trying to get this out. And you're like, there's not really many shows that can make that scene worth your while, let alone get 30 minutes out of it, which is what they
Yeah.
do. But this show can, and episodes 4, 5, and 6. So we get, just as a contrast, you get Tony Gilroy writes 1, 2, and 3. Bo Willimon, architect of House of Cards on Netflix, also had been one of the writers in season 1 of Andor, and most notably is the co-writer of Dawn of the Jedi with James Mangold. He writes 4, 5, and 6. And then you get Tony Gilroy's brother Dan, who writes 7, 8, and 9. You get no drop off, but you get a little differences in flares and style, but no drop off in quality. The 4, 5, and 6 part leading into 7, 8, and 9, one of the things I really enjoy was the duplicity, the layer upon layer of betrayal. This show definitely went full into, that's why I was thinking Bo Willimon. It's like, it definitely went into his House of Cards bag, right? The political intrigue, espionage type of show. Like this show went into that, like all in this stretch of episodes. And it
Yeah,
worked brilliantly.
Andor, yeah, was not bondage, but in that world, but in terms of espionage and being the charismatic guy, and and having a license to kill, right? Pretty much.
So it's funny you say that. I thought season 1 finale was very Bournish to me in the way he was kind of fading in and out of that set piece. But you're right. there is a little Bond flair when he's in costume and he's the one basically telling the woman like how inexperienced and sloppy she's being as an informant.
Yeah.
He's inhabiting a different character, and you're right, he's not hesitant to use his piece when he needs to. So no, you're right, there is a little bit of Bond minus the bells and whistles. Yeah, but this really does become a spy show at points in this arc. I also think so. I would submit. I don't know what you think. We use the athlete comparison. Cassian Andor's peak occurs in episode 9. To me, I'll make the case when he breaks Mon Mothma out of the Senate. That to me, knowing where he ends up and knowing where he started, that is the peak of his career. Why? Because he tells Luthen before he goes, "When have I ever failed?" He knows he's
Yeah.
good. At that point, he knows he's the best guy on any mission. And he shows up. He's totally cool, disappearing into the role as a journalist, right? He gets Mon out of there. He's completely keeping her in check and in line,
Yeah.
and he's moving without hesitation. He draws like a gunslinger, kills those guys without hesitation, gets her out of there. And then at the end, she's like, "I don't know how to thank you." And he says, "Make it worth it." Like
Yeah.
he is
Yeah.
prime. And in his mind, he's coming home to Bix. Spoiler alert. This is why I think it's his career peak, because we know what happens next.
Yeah.
So that in that moment, I think he literally is at like, that's the apex of Cassian Andor hero at that moment.
I think for a lot of these characters, they reach a moment of decision making, and you see um, their character change, having to switch from not really feeling good about whatever it is doing, whatever it is that they're doing and what's happened, and deciding to make a change, or perhaps realizing what's occurred and understanding what's at stake and what's really happening, and knowing a lot of these characters realize it, and some suffer, the fate.
We'll get to that in a second. I think that's another thing this show did really well. But I think that's the reason why I say it's his peak, is because we know that when we meet him in Rogue One, he's pretty jaded. Like he's pretty down on, even though he's still in the rebellion and he's clearly like a veteran soldier, he's pretty down on life. And he kind of gets this redemptive arc when he doesn't shoot Galen Erso on the platform. And then he kind of obviously becomes a hero when they steal the plans and they die on Scarif. And so it was just interesting to me to see him in this episode where he is basically telling the future leader of the rebellion how it is, and he's the one directing and kind of saying like, "Welcome to the rebellion." Like he is total, like in a total leadership role, hero role, and in his mind one step closer to the life he really wants. But then when Bix leaves, that begins the descent. Like that's the moment where he goes past his peak and now starts the downward arc, which heads
Yeah.
toward, I think, where we'll meet him in Rogue One. So I think it's interesting. Okay, Cyril Karn and Deidre Miro. God, as I said, this relationship that is so horrific, but I can't look away from. Cyril Karn's end, spoiler alert, I think is amazing. It's amazing because the massacre itself is amazing and graphic, and yet, again, the show keeps the focus on these like one or two people. And the fight with Cassian is, I couldn't get over it because he attacks Cassian as like this lifelong nemesis. And what's Cassian's response? "Who are you?" Like that is, it's an amazing exchange where like they're fighting for their lives, and yet the one guy sees this as this very personal moment, and the other guy's like, "What the hell? Like, I know this guy's an Imperial, but what the hell is going on here?"
Yeah. I thought it was surprising. I didn't think he would go out. I think he would, to see that turn into perhaps being fully turned or converted into the rebellion would have been interesting to see.
Well, which I
Um,
think he was going to. You could
it
like
seems like,
when he discovered the deception of Deidre and Partagast, he
yeah,
did effectively walk out on the Empire. He
yeah,
did effectively walk out on the Empire, which is again a testament to this show because in 4, 5, and 6, he is so fired up to just be part of that scheme where they're surveilling the raid. You can see
yeah.
he's so excited. He's like, I have so much purpose. It's the best day of my life. He tells Deidre it's the best day of my life. And then a year later he's like, what are we doing, what are you, what's going on here? And then he takes out all that frustration on Cassian, which then leads to his death. But I love this show for not doing the formulaic stuff, right? We see Cassian sent on a mission to kill Deidre, and the Hollywood way would be like Cyril takes the bullet, right, sacrifices himself to save the woman he loves, and blah blah blah. Like, this show doesn't deal with that. He's just one of those dudes who dies on the battlefield. And Cassian's like, who are you? Like, he never knows, right? Cassian never knows who that guy is.
And he's forgotten. That's why this show's so brilliant. Like, a year has passed. You know what I'm saying? Where are they now? How much of what has happened changed them? I'm going to be assuming that Cassian, especially after the ending of 9, starts becoming much more of that leader that people are looking at him as. Perhaps we don't see Luthen in Rogue One, right?
No, I don't think Luthen gets out of this show. No.
So
And they're foreshadowing
this,
that already, right? Cassian's
yeah,
telling Luthen, like, you're going to get caught if you stay here. And Luthen's like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm going to get caught. I've known that all along. I think Cassian already is the leader, though, because in this couple of episodes, again, we see him in the shop with that woman, telling her all the mistakes she's making as an informant. That's leadership. We see him saying, welcome to the rebellion. We're seeing him say, make it worth it. I have friends everywhere. We see the guy tell him in the hotel, rebellions are built on hope. Like, he's there. I mean, I think he's there. I actually think there's some irony to he loses the love of his life in Bix. And weirdly, I
because
think this
Bix
show,
realizes it.
yeah. But in a weird way, who does the show replace Bix with? It's K2SO, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what winds up happening. That's that's the only other friend, quote unquote, that he winds up having.
I think because effectively that was his last mission. He effectively wanted to give that up to go be with Bix. So, I think at that point, Bix feels like she's holding him back. And Luthen is like, yo, if she becomes a problem, something got, you know what I'm saying?
Well, this is why the moment makes it works really well, because Luthen and Cassian have that conversation about Bix and where she's at mentally and emotionally with everything. And
Yeah.
Bix effectively proves Luthen right, in the sense of, because Cassian's like, well, she'll be fine. She'll be fine. And then Bix kind of has this realization of like, no, it's not fine. I'm not fine. And I am holding him back. And she's like, I'm choosing for us. I choose the rebellion, meaning the rebellion needs you more.
Yeah.
And she kind of makes Luthen right, because she's kind of like, I'm separating myself from Andor. And in doing that makes him a better rebel, I guess, if you will. But I think it'll make him, I think in episodes 10, 11, 12, I think he's going to be more angry. And I think he's going to be more sad. That's why I say, I think you're seeing the best of him now in 7, 8, and 9. I think he will be more bitter in 10, 11, and 12. Season 1 is in a lot of ways one man's entry point to a fledgling cause. Season 2 is the organization of that cause, right? The same character has now ascended to a leadership position. But I think, is it Bix? Someone makes a reference to the rebellion getting organized in one of these episodes. Kind of says like, look, like things are really getting organized around here. Like, that is clearly a message of like, we are on the road to, as I said, this operation that is pretty cohesive by the time Luke and Han get dropped into it.
No, yeah. It's
So that, I think they're showing you, like, with Yavin, like Yavin looks a lot different in 7, 8, and 9 than it does when we first get there. I think season 2 is really about that expansion, but it's what the Gorman Massacre winds up being. Gorman Massacre is like, if you draw the American Revolution, Gorman Massacre is Lexington and Concord, right? That's the moment where things spill into the open, right? Like up until now, the rebels have been dumping tea in the harbor, right? That's small scale stuff. When the massacre comes, now there's something to rally behind. And when Mon Mothma delivers the speech accusing Emperor Palpatine by name of being the monster who will come for all of them, that is the official Declaration of Independence. That's what it is. I mean, if you're drawing the parallel, that's what it is. And now it's on. Now it's officially on. So I think that's been handled brilliantly, while still showing these individual situations of planets, cities, people who are trying to figure out like how to contribute, if to contribute, and like
Yeah.
what that looks like. Yeah.
And people who are just going by just to survive, and then people turn. You don't know where loyalties lie until it really is, is going down.
But it acknowledges too, like something we saw even in the future movies, which is whether it's Jakku, Tatooine, like there are planets that kind of just stay out of it for the most part, right? There are not everyone participates in this, and
Yeah.
this show makes sure that like this is not a unanimous vote. There are people who are kind of like, they exist in the world, but they're not really invested in the cause either way. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important distinction. It's not like you have to be on either side. So,
Yeah.
but no, the action staging, I don't even know what they could possibly have saved for 10, 11, and 12. That's maybe my main question. Is like, what is the way this show is operated? What is the set piece, or what is the conflict, or what is the thing they want to end this show on 1 year before we get to Rogue One?
All I can think of right now is the numbers for Rogue One in terms of viewership are gonna rise and rise.
It feels like this season very secretly has been more as much about her journey as about Cassian's. And it kind of feels like between this year that we're not going to see in the next week, it will be her going from almost she's so forceful on the Senate floor in what she believes and what she knows. But when confronted with the reality of it, as Cassian is breaking her out, you can see that she's still so inexperienced as a true rebel. And I just have this feeling that 10, 11, and 12 is really going to be about her coming out party.
That's gonna be dope.
And I think that might be where the show ends, is like the acceptance of her as like post Luthen's death, which I'm assuming is coming, the acceptance of her as this central figure that we're going to rally this rebellion around. That feels like where you would exit the show.
This is the sort of show that you don't even like. Why try to rate it?
No, this
Because
is
it is.
get your Michael T. Williamson quote from Heat. This is it.
Yeah. You don't even rate this, yo. This is just instant classic, man. This goes in the vault. This goes with you watch over and over and over and over and over again just to catch. I'd say beautiful lyrics, Brian.
Always the practical stuff. You just see the difference, man. I know we've talked about how the volume is useful, but this show kind of lays waste to the idea that the volume could ever be better.
That's that shot that they show of the city. They show it to you, yo. They show it to you.
Coruscant is their version of Coruscant is better than Lucas's version of Coruscant, hands down. Even the details, I got to be honest, there's little things. When they were in the Gorman massacre, one thing I was noticing, I thought the weapons were cool. The weapons the rebels had, like the shotguns, the blaster, I was like, they had this little variety of like, wow, there's all this different weaponry that individuals would have versus the stormtroopers.
The pew pews. They elevated the pew pews, yo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had that reaction of like, this is cool. These different guys have these like from home. They have these individual guns that are look and sound. And yeah, I was just like, these are the little things sometimes that make a difference. It gives you that one thing you can dangle in front of your kids. It's kind of like when you're grown up, when you're ready.
When you're ready.
Right. It's like that. Remember in Braveheart when was it young William Wallace kind of meets his uncle Argyle, and he kind of they're standing next to him, and he's like, when he tells him like, first you learn to use this, and then he like gets the big sword out, and he's like, then I'll teach you to use this. Andor's the giant sword. Like when you're ready, then you get to use that. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
adult Star Wars.
Imagine Rogue One was the beginning.
Oh, you're doing the retcon of like if we could have seen that before the. Okay, so you're getting into real territory of like sacrilegious stuff, which is like if that was possible, would we have seen some of the original Star Wars stuff as a disappointment? Because this was just better. I don't think we would have felt that way about New Hope, but certainly I think about the prequels. We would have
Oh, the
felt
prequels,
very
yeah.
let down by episode 1 and 2, even more so than we did in the moment if this had existed before that came out.
Hells yeah. Like, what the hell is this? This is what people would be like, yo, what is this? What what are we doing
Yeah.
here?
Fire George
But
Lucas, bring in Tony Gilroy.
right?
Yeah.
It's
No, you're
like
right.
I'll watch anything Tony Gilroy now, man. What else has he done?
So he wrote all the Bourne movies. That's
Okay.
the reason why, if you notice the Bourne comparison, like he wrote all of those. He was nominated for an Oscar for Michael Clayton, 2007 thriller, and then he wrote and quasi directed Rogue One. So those are sort of his big Bo Willimon House of Cards, and that's why I told you, like, you see episodes 7, 8, and 9, what Dan Gilroy did with that, and I'm just saying he's writing the new Miami Vice. I'm just saying, like, you have to pay attention. He's writing it and Joe Kosinski is directing it. Like that all of a sudden became like a consideration for me when I saw
That's,
that.
yo, it's like the 80s are back, baby. Like, I don't know. And to think that some people out there don't like it, and it's okay if you don't like it, but it's like hard to have a conversation about why you don't like it, right? It's like, I'm not going to understand your reasoning, possibly. I would like to hear it. I would like to hear it. But in terms of the performances here, the stakes, the scenarios, the tension, with not a lot happening, and then when it happens, like we said it before in the first, it builds to a certain point where it gives it to you, and it's
Yeah. There's no wasted
I
moments
I
in this.
can't I can't get it out of my head. You wish you could be watching all of this all the time with different stuff and be this good in their own thing, but
I mean, the fundamental question of your enjoyment of the show really comes down to what do you want Star Wars to be? Like to me, this is a show you can enjoy with no connection to Star Wars whatsoever. Yes, it is very connective. If you are a Star Wars fan, it's very connective. It provides much canon and history to things you know. But if you've never seen any Star Wars material, I believe you can enjoy this show as prestige television. I think that's part of the brilliant. Now, if you're the kind of person that's like, my Star Wars has to have lightsabers, it has to have, you know, furry creatures. If that's what it has to be, then yes, this is probably not for you.
yeah,
But then you have to ask the question: are you okay with that being everything Star Wars is ever going to be? Because Gilroy's whole point, at which he's talked about, is like he wants to take the palette of Star Wars and see if you can apply it to the spy genre, to the thriller genre. And he even floated like courtroom drama or comedy. Like he's just throwing that out there as like, can you do it? And we're going to see, I think, James Mangold and Bo Willimon try to apply it to historical epic. Like we're going to see them try. But like some people just won't accept that, right? Some people have to live in the confines only of the Skywalker world. And by the way, I think they introduced the Force in this without saying it, right? Because that healer clearly is channeling the Force, and she's talking about this sort of almost divine journey that she senses. That 100% is they're talking about the Force without saying the Force.
yeah. And you see Cassian like, what are you talking about? He's like, what? He's like, he doesn't want to hear it.
That's the kid. I've flown from one side of this galaxy to the other. I've seen a lot of strange stuff. I ain't never seen anything make me believe is all one powerful force control. That it's that speech. That's Cassian giving that speech when he looks at her like she's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Bix
yeah.
clearly is internalizing that as like, oh, there's something else going on here that I might have picked up on.
What else? I mean, we can talk about this for hours, but
You know what they should do? They should put this in the theater someday and let people watch it like in blocks, like they did this season. Like break both seasons into the blocks of 3 at a time, put them in the theater, and just
that
see
is,
like
edited.
if you feel it differently, if you watch it 1 to 24 in blocks of 3 with like no real separation over a weekend, there's no drop off. I've never seen a show that had no drop off.
I could just see. You could just imagine going to the theaters and seeing, and they edit it, perfectly, that that it's a movie,
Yeah, you clip the credits, like you clip it so it's seamless. Yeah.
like
That's what I
Mr.
mean. How can
Han
this go
said.
out on a higher note? How can this go out on a higher note? I'm like, I know it will because that's everything they've done gives you that confidence. But I'm like,
Oh snap,
couldn't
Mr.
believe it. I
Han.
was like, yeah. Stuff we saw like in 7, 8, and 9, I was like, you're seeing the massacre, you're seeing this rescue, you're seeing this speech. And you're just like, there's really another level beyond this?
And aesthetically, it just looks
Looks
wonderful.
amazing. Yes.
This show needs to win all types of awards, yo.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, if this show we get out of both seasons of this and there's like no Emmys to be had for any of these people, that will feel like a robbery. Then we're officially into the like, what's the list of best shows never to win? While we're on this discussion, maybe we'll have the full discussion after episode 12. As of now, if you had to give only one Emmy to an actor in this show, who would you actually give it to? So you can go lead or supporting, either category, actor or actress. Right now, you can only give one.
Ooh.
Who would actually get it?
There's a, I mean,
Exactly. Right. This is the like, it's Diego Luna's show, but it's not. It is an ensemble show. So
there's so
Diego
many.
Luna, Stellan Skarsgård, Genevieve O'Reilly, like,
I like the dude, the commander, the dude with the 4 blues, the top
yeah,
dude. He's dope,
Arbogast.
yo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Deidre Miro. Like, if you only get
Deirdre
one,
too. Yeah, Deirdre too. That last week's episode performance, where again you see the character break down from the norm. They're realizing certain horrors and certain things that need to happen, possibly within themselves, and what they've realized they don't know how to. That's why this next episode is going to be so interesting to see where they are right now, yo. And the cracks.
yes, I think if I had to, I would still give Stellan Skarsgård the supporting Emmy. If I had to, I still think that character does the most with every second that he's on screen. It's close, but I think every speech, every word, his duplicity as sort of a merchant, and then as this real driving force of, I think that's who, if a gun to my held to my head, that's who I would give it to. But I mean, yes, if I had to give only one, I would give him the supporting Emmy. But I mean, I got to be honest, like,
Okay, for male, now for female.
oh, for female, I think I would give Deidre the Emmy. I think she's, although I will say Mon is catching her week to week. I mean, it's getting, and Adria Arjona I can't dismiss either, but I think Deidre gets the nod. I think she's the most compelling.
Yeah.
She's the most compelling figure in the empire of this entire show to me.
I wouldn't be mad if Bix makes it out and she's still out there for the next Jedi stuff, for the next Star Wars movies that they do, and she's not involved in it some way, somehow.
Oh, and then she somehow was like, no, like somehow what, knows Cassian died on Scarif, but she was alive out there somewhere, or doesn't know that.
Because she leaves, right? I don't
She
know if
leaves,
she's
and we
on.
don't know. I thought she was going to die for sure with the drug addiction and all that sort of stuff, but like, this is
She
now making it
needs,
seem like she might. I still have a feeling she might die. Like somehow
I
she
hope
might get
not.
roped back
But,
into this. But
but I
yeah,
mean, if I'm in the room, I'll be like, yo, we can't kill her off. Now that we trying to do this Star Wars, she's a very powerful character, yo. She's a very powerful character.
I just think with the way this show has not wasted any seconds, the fact that she is a drug addict, I feel like has to be, that's unresolved right now. And why have that in the show as her way of dealing with the trauma? And why have Stellan Skarsgård warn her that basically using that will lead to adverse consequences if it doesn't actually lead to adverse consequences. I just have a feeling that she will
Yeah.
reemerge a year later in some capacity, but it will lead to her death.
I hope not. I think this her leaving just changed his focus
It did.
to eventually become the leader. I don't think bringing her back and then killing her will make him do more than what I think he's already prepared to do.
No, I think that would be in the name of, again, he has to descend from where he is now and where he's likely going to be in the next episodes into where we see him in Rogue One. He is a weather beaten, over it veteran rebel by that point. That is a jaded dude who has questionable morals, and he finds his redemption. Like I said, when he refuses to kill Galen Erso, that's the moment he kind of comes back from the brink and finds one last heroic run. But he's like a pretty sour dude for the first 2/3 of Rogue One.
That's why watching Rogue One now doesn't seem as confusing as like when you first saw it, like, well, this dude just killed somebody just like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now when you
Yeah.
see it, you're like, okay, that's Andor for
That's
you.
him. That's him. He does that from the very beginning. He has that DNA of like shoot first. He's the, he don't
He's
need
that
Greedo to shoot first. Yeah.
license to kill, baby.
Yeah.
And you don't miss anything about, the fact that they threw in the force in there a little bit. You're like, makes me want to see that Mango movie, yo, because that would be the connection, yo. There's so many possibilities here to revive Star Wars, man. And they're
Yeah. You got
doing
to
it with
believe.
this
You got to
because you got to
expand the
have that
horizon.
bar. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. You got to set that bar. That's it. We can't, I understand. I don't know if there are ways, because I understand that, like, when Lucas wanted this, it was for kids, right? There was a certain, this is definitely not for kids, but, the dollars are, if you're giving me this, the dollars are guaranteed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The dollars are guaranteed. My money, I'm saving my money to give to you. To when you make something in the theaters that's dope.
As much as, selfishly we could say like, hey, we want the Gilroys back. We want these people back doing more. I feel and enjoy in this show that there is a game 7 mentality. You can feel it in the way this show is being made, of like, these people from the very beginning knew where the end of the season was. They knew where the end of the show was, and there's nothing being left in the tank. Right? You can just feel it. Like as we go along here, it's this sense of like everything we've got as writers, as actors, as creators, like is all being left out there in these 24 episodes. And I there is something about that if they were like, hey, we're doing a season 3, we're doing a season 4, like it would kind of diminish that a little bit. You can feel that. You feel that urgency in the story they're telling. And there is something to that that's pretty awesome to watch.
You know what I like, yo? And it's probably nothing to nobody, but or to anyone else. But her speech.
Mon's speech,
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah.
But the fact that she said, I gotta practice this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
That to me was like, there are brilliant people that just don't, we have to prepare in order to be able to deliver a message that people will comprehend and understand and believe in. We can certainly be charismatic and say things that would probably motivate and inspire people, right? This is why the gravity of the speech that she has to give, yo, I gotta practice this, yo. And she's there, and we hear excerpts of her speech and them planning your escape because we know what's going to happen. We know it.
Yep.
And we seeing every step of what is going to transpire and how the hell we're going to get out because this is happening. The Rubicon.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's exactly what it is. It's been officially, as I said, it's game on now. Like,
wow, I can't wait. But let me ask you this question. Did you like Return of the Jedi?
oh yeah, no, I still like it. Yeah, I
Which
still
one
like
is
it.
Return of the Jedi again?
Ewoks.
Oh, okay.
I still
Yeah, I
like it.
like that one. Yeah, I like that
It's
one. I
not as
like
good.
that
It's not
one.
as good as Empire, but it's still really good. I mean the Jabba Sailbard stuff is really good. The throne room with the Emperor is really good. Um, it's really dramatic. It has real weight. The space battle's still pretty good. Endor sequence I really enjoy. I mean, yeah, people always give it grief because the Ewoks are little teddy bears, but that's Lucas for the kids. But the battle in the
Yeah,
forest is still really compelling. I
I
mean,
didn't
the
mind them
speeder
when I
bike.
was a kid. I
No,
did
that's what I'm
not
saying.
mind
Like
it.
the speeder
Yeah,
bike stuff is really cool. Like the fighting the
that.
walkers, like that's really cool. Like as you grow up, you see Empire differently because it is a more adult Star Wars movie. It just is.
Yeah.
The concepts are more adult, and that's why most people view that as the best one of all. But from an enjoyability, just like blockbuster entertainment, Return of the Jedi is really good.
I enjoyed it a lot when I was a kid. Return of the Jedi, man. I still enjoy Star Wars to this day when it's on TV, man. You cannot not like it, yo. But this right here
This is next level.
is
It's different.
different, yo. And it just is. And this is what Star Wars to me look like, yo. These are Star Wars.
Yeah.
Talk about escape. You think Avatar is escape? This is escape.
This show is not meant to sell toys. This show is not meant to create amusement park rides. That's why I say this is much more like Shakespeare. It's much more like this is you're going to the West End or you're going to Broadway and you're going to see something Star Wars brought to life in a very dramatic way.
But would you buy an Andor doll? Yes.
Probably, I'm sure you would. I'll buy that TIE Avenger. Buy some of the ships in this, which look pretty cool. Buy some of the gun. Buy some of the laser that I just talked about. Buy some of. I haven't seen those in the toy shop. But get those. But like, yeah, look, I'm just saying the point of it, was Lucas built a lot of his world around the marketability of creatures, toys, vehicles, right? It was done with that in mind, and
Yeah.
this is not. This is not aimed at that primarily. So, like, you're not really going to see the Lego Andor series in Star Wars. Like, there's plenty of Lego Star Wars, but not necessarily as much there. So, but it's a great standalone companion to like what we have in the Star Wars library.
And I'm not talking about classic Star Wars neither.
No,
I'm talking about straight up classic.
yeah, it is.
It is art.
50 years from now, this is going to be in the conversation with like The Sopranos.
Yeah.
That's the Game of Thrones, or what else we got? Mad Men, Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Like that's the conversation this show will go into.
Yeah.
It won't go into the conversation of like what was the best Star Wars show. That's not even a question. That's a laughable discussion in my mind. This goes into the question of like what are the best TV shows that go into the vault for the next 50 or 100 years that everyone has to watch once before they die. That's what this show goes into.
Tracy hasn't watched it yet. I want to hear his thoughts on the show. I want to hear your thoughts on the show, you guys. So you guys can comment in the comment section below and let us know what you think of Andor season 2 so far. Yeah, well, let us know in the comment section below. Hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Nerd Gym Report.